The sun was setting behind the skyscrapers of New York, casting a golden glow over the city that never sleeps. I sat on my leather sofa, enveloped in the heavy silence that dominated my apartment. The soft light filtered through the curtains, revealing the dust dancing in the air, as solitary as I felt. The scent of coffee still lingered in the kitchen, but the aroma offered no comfort. It was merely another reminder of the emptiness left by Emily. The apartment was a museum of our moments together. The walls were adorned with photos that told the story of a love that now felt so distant. Emily smiling on a beach trip, the two of us at a romantic dinner, and that spontaneous photo where she laughed so intensely that her eyes closed. I lost myself in those memories, as if they could take me back to a time when happiness wasn't just a distant recollection. I stood up with difficulty, my steps heavy as if the weight of my pain was dragging me down. I walked over to the bookshelf, where business and finance books were stacked in perfect order, a metaphor for my life before the tragedy. But at the back of the shelf, an old dusty book caught my eye. Pulling it out, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. It was Pride and Prejudice, one of Emily's favorites. She loved to read aloud the dialogues between Elizabeth and Darcy. The sound of her voice echoed in my mind, and I smiled involuntarily, but the joy quickly faded, replaced by sadness. As I flipped through the yellowed pages, something fell to the floor. A letter, aged with time, had been hidden between the leaves. My heart raced. I didn't remember seeing that letter before. Curious, I bent down to pick it up, and as I opened it, Emily's delicate handwriting revealed itself. The letter began with "My love," and the words that followed transported me to a place where pain had not yet taken hold. "Michael," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer by your side. I want you to know that life is full of surprises, and even when darkness seems to prevail, there will always be a light. A treasure I hid for you, something that might connect us again." My heart raced. What did she mean by treasure? The letter continued to flow, full of love and hope. Emily mentioned a special place, a location we used to visit, and the possibility of finding something she had left for me. I had no idea what it could be, but the thought that she had thought of me until the very end filled me with a mix of joy and despair. "I hope you don't close yourself off to love again. One day, someone special may enter your life, and you must be open to receive them. Remember that I will always be by your side, even if you cannot see me." Tears streamed down my face as I read her words. I didn't want to think about another love. The emptiness that Emily left was profound, and the idea of filling that space with someone else felt like betrayal. But the search for the treasure could be a way for me to connect with her, to feel her presence once more. The letter ended with a simple, "I love you always," and as I read those words, a new impulse filled me. I stood up quickly, feeling a renewed sense of determination. If there was a chance to discover what she wanted me to find, I needed to follow that clue. My heart pulsed strongly, like a beat echoing in my mind. What did I have to lose besides the pain I already carried? I decided that night I would begin my investigation. I looked around the apartment, and among the objects that belonged to Emily, I realized that each had a story. The jewelry box, the books I could never read without her voice, and even the blue dress she wore on our last anniversary. Each memory was a blow to my heart, but also a flame that rekindled hope within me. As I organized the table, the letter still in hand, I visualized the places we had frequented. The park where we had our first picnic, the cafe where we spent hours talking, and that little lake where we took a rowboat. The idea that a treasure could be hidden in a place that meant so much to us gave me courage. I needed to go out, breathe fresh air, and reconnect with the memories that, despite the pain, were still beautiful. "Michael, are you okay?" The soft voice of my sister, Jessica, interrupted my thoughts. She appeared in the doorway, concerned. "I'm just thinking," I replied, trying to hide the fragility in my voice. But Jessica knew too well my emotional state. "You're still blaming yourself, aren't you?" She moved closer, sitting beside me. "You need to let that go. It's not that simple, Jess. I miss her every day. It's like a part of me is missing." The pain seeped through every word I spoke. "I know. But you can't live in the shadow of the past. Emily wouldn't want you to be stuck here, surrounded by these memories, she said, her gaze filled with understanding. I found a letter from her, I confessed, holding the paper in my hands. She talks about a treasure, something I need to discover. I feel like maybe this could help me move forward. Jessica raised an eyebrow, intrigued. A treasure? What are you waiting for? Go after it. This could be exactly what you need. I hesitated, but the impulse to move forward was strong. Do you think it's a good idea? What if I don't find anything? And what if you do? Michael, you can't let life pass you by while clinging to things you can't change. Go after what made her happy. It could be your chance to reconnect with her in a new way. Her words resonated within me. You're right. I'll do it. Tomorrow. She smiled, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope sprout within me. The idea of following the clues left by Emily seemed like a way to renew myself, to rediscover not only what she had left behind but also who I was. That night before sleeping, I looked once more at the letter. It was more than just a piece of paper. It was an invitation to a new journey. The treasure Emily mentioned could be anything, but from that moment on, I was determined to find out. And who knows, perhaps this search would lead me to rediscover not just the love I lost, but also the love that could be reborn. The cool autumn breeze gently blew as I walked through the park, the same place where I spent many afternoons with Emily. The scenery was familiar yet felt changed. The leaves of the trees, once a vibrant green, now displayed a palette of yellows, oranges, and reds, as if the park itself were mourning my loss. With each step, the weight of nostalgia mingled with the hope ignited by Emily's letter. A hidden treasure, I thought, recalling her words. The idea seemed so absurd and yet irresistibly tempting. I wasn't sure what I was searching for, but the prospect of discovering more about her life, of finding something that connected her to me, gave me strength. The letter had brought me to this park. I remembered how Emily loved to watch the ducks on the lake. It was a simple moment, but she always managed to turn the mundane into something magical with her smile. This place is special, she used to say. It's where stories meet. And indeed, it felt like my story was about to intersect with another. As I explored the park, I spotted a woman sitting on a bench with a book open on her lap. Her brown hair fluttered gently in the wind, and her eyes, lost in the reading, reflected a sadness I knew all too well. Something about her caught my attention. It was as if, amid the pain we both carried, there was a silent connection, a mutual understanding. May I sit here? I asked, hesitating but determined. She looked up, and I saw a look of surprise on her face. Of course, she replied with a shy smile. I'm Sarah. Michael, I said, sitting down beside her. A pause followed, but the silence was not uncomfortable. It felt as if we were both waiting for the right moment to speak. Do you come here often? She asked, breaking the ice. Not really. I'm here because of... well, a letter I found. It was from my wife, I confessed, feeling the weight of the revelation. I'm so sorry, Sarah said, her gaze softening. I lost my fiancé a few months ago. An accident. I can't stop thinking about how cruel life can be. The empathy between us was palpable. Life is full of surprises, isn't it? I said, trying to smile, but the sadness still lingered in the air. Yes, sometimes I wonder if things will ever get better, Sarah replied, looking toward the lake. The pain feels so intense, yet there are moments when I feel incredibly alive. That's true, I agreed. Pain and joy can coexist. I'm trying to find a balance between them. This letter. It mentions a hidden treasure, and I'm trying to figure out what that means. What do you think this treasure is? Sarah asked, her interest piqued. I have no idea. It could be something material, but what I really hope for is to find a connection with Emily. Something that helps me understand better who she was, I said, feeling the vulnerability of my confession. Maybe the treasure isn't an object but rather a new perspective, Sarah suggested. Sometimes true wealth lies in the memories and the people we meet along the way. The depth of her words touched me. You're right. I hadn't thought of it that way. I've been clinging so tightly to my pain that I didn't realize I could also seek new experiences, new friendships. It's a slow process, Sarah said. But it's possible. Life goes on even when we don't want it to. And it can be surprising what we find when we decide to look forward. The conversation flowed naturally, as if we had known each other for a long time. We talked about our lives before our losses, about dreams and aspirations, about what made us happy. I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. After a while, I decided to share with her what the letter said. It mentions a place, a refuge of memories where we can find what we seek. I don't know exactly what that means, but I feel I need to discover it, I said, looking at Sarah. Can I help you? She asked, a spark of determination in her eyes. It seems like you're on a journey of self-discovery, and I'd love to be a part of it. If you don't mind, of course. Would you be willing to get involved in this? I questioned, surprised by her offer. It's something very personal to me. I'm willing, she affirmed with an encouraging smile. I also need a purpose. And who knows, maybe this search will help us deal with our own pains. Then let's do it, I replied, feeling a wave of hope. The idea of having someone by my side on this journey relieved me. Let's find this treasure together. In the following days, we began to study the letter more closely. We sat in cafes, surrounded by the aroma of fresh coffee and the bustle of the city, discussing every phrase and word. Some references were vague, but there was a sense that each clue would lead us to something meaningful. Look here, Sarah said one morning, pointing to a specific passage. This part talks about the heart of the park. Could be a reference to a specific place. What do you think? It could be, I replied, already excited by the idea. Maybe there's a landmark or a tree that holds special significance for us. Emily used to mention that trees had stories to tell. Let's explore the park again then. Who knows, we might find something, Sarah suggested, her passion for discovery contagious. Thus we began our search. The park, which had once been a place of sad memories for me, started to transform into a space of exploration and hope. Every step we took together was a step toward the unknown, but at the same time it was a step toward healing. The connection between us deepened each day, not just because of the shared pain, but through the empathy and mutual determination to find something that made sense. Life, which had once seemed like an endless sequence of colorless days, was beginning to shine again. And while we explored the park, I couldn't help but wonder if, just as Emily had become a part of my quest, Sarah might become a part of my new life. The gentle morning breeze wafted through the window of my apartment, carrying away the remnants of the previous night. I was still waking up, but it was impossible not to remember the letter that would change the course of my life. The smell of fresh coffee fully roused me. As I poured myself a cup, I glanced at the table where Emily's letter lay, like a forgotten treasure waiting to be discovered. Once I finished my coffee, I picked up the letter and read it once more. Emily's words danced in my mind, reminding me of the precious moments we had shared. The treasure she mentioned seemed a metaphor, but now, with Sarah by my side, everything took on a new meaning. The idea of a hidden treasure, one that could connect me to the past and guide me toward a brighter future, was intriguing. Are you thinking about the letter again? Sarah's voice brought me back to reality. She was sitting on the couch, flipping through a book I didn't recognize. Yeah, it's hard not to think about her, I replied, placing the letter back on the table. Every clue seems to lead to a place that holds a story of ours. Sarah smiled, and I realized that even amidst the pain, there was a lightness in the air when we were together. What do you think you'll find? I don't know. Maybe just a piece of Emily I don't know. Or perhaps something that helps us understand better what happened. I hesitated before continuing. Her life was full of secrets, and I'd like to uncover more. We can do this together, she suggested, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. If the letter mentions a specific place, why don't we start investigating? I was filled with determination. You're right. Let's do this. So we began to plan our day. The first clue led us to a park we used to frequent. Central Park was a place where we could get lost in the crowd and find each other among the trees and lawns. The path there was filled with memories, and I found myself recalling how Emily and I used to walk hand in hand, laughing and dreaming together. When we arrived at the park, the sun was shining high in the sky, and the atmosphere vibrated with children's laughter and the birds singing. Sarah and I walked slowly, soaking in the beauty around us. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" I asked, looking at her. "Of course. You were so nervous because you wanted to impress me," she laughed, and the sound was like music to my ears. "And you ended up getting lost while trying to find the way to the lake." I chuckled, remembering the embarrassing situation. "Yeah, and you found me sitting on a bench, looking like an idiot." "I thought it was adorable," Sarah said, looking at me with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "But seriously, what do you hope to find here?" "A clue. Something that leads us to more answers," I replied, the anticipation growing inside me. "Let's split up and look for something that stands out." We agreed and began to explore, each heading in a different direction. I walked further towards the lake, where the waters reflected the blue sky. As I strolled, I looked around, trying to spot anything that could be a clue. That's when I noticed an ancient tree, with a plaque engraved at its base. The inscription read, "Love is the tree of all memories." In that moment, my heart raced. This tree was a symbol. I approached it, touching the rough bark and feeling a deep connection to the past. "Sarah!" I shouted, calling her over. She ran up, her expression of curiosity quickly turning to surprise as she saw the plaque. "What did you find?" "Look at this." I showed her the plaque. "It could be a clue. It's a place where you could have hidden something," she suggested, looking around. "Do you think there's something buried here?" "Maybe. Let's check." I was filled with energy, excited by the possibility of finding something that would connect me even more to Emily. We started digging around the tree, using our hands to remove the dirt. After a few minutes, something metallic glinted in the sunlight. My heart raced as I pulled out a small wooden box, weathered by time. It was a treasure chest. "Michael, you did it!" Sarah exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. My mind was racing as I opened the box. Inside, there were some old jewelry, a gold chain, and a wristwatch that I recognized as belonging to Emily. "She kept this," I murmured, holding the watch delicately. "This is amazing," Sarah said, admiring the jewelry. "You must feel so connected to her now." "Yeah, but at the same time it's a mix of emotions. I miss her, but I also feel like I'm discovering parts of her I never knew," I replied, looking at the jewelry and wondering about the stories they carried. "These things can help you understand who she was. And maybe that can help you move forward," Sarah suggested, her tone soft and encouraging. I looked into her eyes and saw a deep understanding. "You're right. This is more than just jewelry. It's a piece of her story. And now a piece of mine." That moment became special, not just for the discovery but for the connection we were forming. Together we were dealing with our pains, and it felt like an act of healing. We returned home, carefully carrying the treasure chest, and the conversation flowed naturally between us. The grief that had once weighed heavily on our hearts was beginning to dissipate, making room for new emotions. We talked about Emily's life, her dreams and aspirations. I had never spoken so much about her with anyone since she passed, and it brought me an unexpected relief. "What if you used this jewelry to do something meaningful in her honor?" Sarah suggested as we arranged our findings on a table. "Like what?" I asked, intrigued. "You could create a foundation in her name. Something that helps other people overcome their pain, just like you're doing now. Turning pain into something positive," Sarah said, her eyes full of passion. The idea took me by surprise. "A foundation? That's incredible. But am I ready for that?" "You don't have to decide right now. But think about it. It's a way to keep her memory alive while helping others," she offered, her gaze encouraging. I fell silent, absorbing her words. The idea of transforming pain into something positive was tempting, and maybe that was exactly what I needed to start moving forward. Sarah was becoming an important part of my life, and I was beginning to realize that pain could eventually give way to hope. "Let's think more about it. One step at a time," I replied, smiling at her. And so, the journey that had begun with the pain of loss was transforming into something more, a quest not just for a treasure but for a greater meaning in life. The morning light filtered through the curtains of my New York apartment, and I, Michael Harris, found myself at an emotional crossroads. The recent discovery of the treasure left by Emily had given me a new perspective on life, but at the same time, a sense of guilt consumed me. How could I embrace life, laugh, and even feel the presence of someone like Sarah while the memory of my wife still loomed heavily over me? We were sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and documents that somehow connected us to a past I was trying to understand. Sarah, with her piercing and understanding gaze, seemed to sense the storm brewing inside me. I admired her for a moment, her brown hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. She had become an anchor amid my confusion, but the idea of moving forward left me uneasy. "Michael," she began, breaking the silence that had settled between us. "You're thinking about something, aren't you?" I looked down, feeling the weight of my thoughts. "It's just that. I feel like I'm having too much fun. As if I'm betraying Emily's memory. It's like I'm moving forward, but at the same time, I feel like I'm leaving her behind." Sarah tilted her head, observing me attentively. "I understand. When I lost my fiancé, I also felt guilty for laughing or even allowing myself to be happy. But the truth is, our loved ones want us to keep living. They don't want us to be stuck in grief." Her words echoed in my mind. I remembered Emily, her contagious laughter, and the way she always encouraged me to seize every moment. She would have wanted me to move on, but how could I do that without feeling disloyal to her memory? "Do you really believe it's possible to love again?" I asked, vulnerability seeping into my voice. "I think so," Sarah replied, her voice soft like the touch of a breeze. "It doesn't mean you have to forget your wife or what she meant to you. But love isn't something that runs out. It can transform, adapt, and you can find a new kind of love that honors the past while still allowing you to live in the present." For the first time since Emily's death, I began to see a glimpse of hope. Grief didn't have to be a perpetual burden. I could honor Emily's memory while allowing something new to grow within me. But there was still part of me that hesitated. "Sarah, you're amazing. I don't know how you managed to talk about this so clearly," I said, trying to express my gratitude. "But what if this new connection we're building ends up hurting someone? What if I end up hurting you?" She smiled, a smile that lit up the room and warmed my heart. "Michael, I'm not a substitute for Emily. And you're not using me as an escape. What we're doing is genuine. We're helping each other heal, one step at a time." The sincerity in her voice was contagious. I was beginning to understand that life wasn't a straight line. It was a series of curves and detours, each with its purpose. What I felt for Sarah was different from anything I had ever felt, but it was no less significant. "I really appreciate that, Sarah. You make me see things differently," I said, feeling lighter. "But I still need some time to process all of this." "Take your time, Michael. I'm here for you," she replied, her sincere gaze conveying comfort. After several hours of discussing the foundation and how we could use it to honor Emily's memory, a new determination began to take shape inside me. I didn't want to just move on. I wanted to do something meaningful, something that could make a difference in the lives of others. At the same time, this idea made me anxious. What if I failed? "Shall we start planning the foundation?" I suggested, trying to steer the conversation towards something more practical. "I want this to be something that truly represents everything Emily was." "I would love to help with that," Sarah replied enthusiastically. "Let's do something amazing." As we began to organize our thoughts and ideas, I noticed that the atmosphere around us had changed. The room was filled with a new energy, and the idea of creating something in Emily's name provided me with purpose. I was finally starting to feel like I was in control again. In the following days, we spent hours working together. Sarah brought her ideas and passion for education, while I focused on how we could fund the foundation. It was a joint effort, and each moment became lighter and more enjoyable. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so alive. One sunny afternoon, we were sitting in a local cafe, discussing the details of the foundation. The aroma of fresh coffee and the laughter around us created a warm atmosphere. Sarah was animated, her eyes sparkling as she talked about the programs we could offer. "I envision a scholarship program for students who lack resources," she suggested, her enthusiasm contagious. "We can help open doors for young people who have so much potential but lack the means to pursue their dreams." "That's brilliant," I replied, feeling inspired. Emily always believed in education as a tool for transformation. This would be a perfect way to honor her legacy. "Exactly," Sarah agreed, her voice full of passion. "And we can include skills workshops, something that helps young people prepare for the job market." We were so engrossed in the conversation that we didn't notice time passing. When I looked at the clock, I realized it was already late. But instead of feeling rushed, there was a sense of accomplishment and hope in my heart. I was beginning to see that, although the pain of loss would never completely disappear, there was room for new experiences and new loves. "Let's do this, Sarah. Let's make this foundation a reality," I said, determined. She smiled and reached out, touching my hand. "I'm by your side, Michael. Together we can make this happen." And in that moment, I realized I was ready to move forward. Emily's memory would always be a part of me, but now there was space for something new and beautiful. Something that could blossom, just like the love that was gradually beginning to be reborn between us. The foundation's launch party was a resounding success. The hall was beautifully decorated, with white and blue flowers perfectly matching the foundation's logo, a delicate representation of a heart intertwined with a ribbon in memory of Emily. I was nervous yet excited. The feeling of connection with Emily was stronger than ever. Looking at the audience, which was filled with friends, family, and colleagues, I felt that she was there, somehow smiling at me. Sarah was by my side, wearing a simple dress that highlighted her natural beauty. She looked radiant, and the way her eyes shone as she spoke with the guests filled me with a mix of admiration and affection. I remembered how difficult it had been to open my heart to her, but now I felt that every moment we spent together was a gift. "Michael!" Sarah's voice caught my attention as she approached. "You're doing so well. People are loving it." "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done this without you," I replied, feeling warmth in my heart as I looked into her eyes. "You helped me find the courage to do this." She smiled, and the world around us seemed to fade away for a moment. It was as if we were the only two people present in that room full of people. The atmosphere was light, and laughter echoed throughout the hall. My closest friends were there, toasting to the success of the foundation, and I felt more connected to my wife than ever before. "Shall we take a picture?" Sarah suggested, gently pulling me toward a group forming near the dessert table. With a camera in hand, one of our friends began snapping photos, and I positioned myself next to Sarah, feeling her warmth beside me. She turned to me, and our eyes met, a moment of silent understanding. The atmosphere was filled with happiness, but there was something more, something I felt growing between us. "You look amazing tonight," I murmured, unable to contain a smile. "And you do too, Michael. It's beautiful to see you so happy," she replied, her eyes shining. "Emily would be proud of you." Hearing her name, a wave of emotion washed over me. I knew Sarah was right. Emily always dreamed of helping others, and now, through the foundation, I was fulfilling that dream. But as I thought about it, I realized there was a dream beginning to form in my heart, the desire to share my life with Sarah. After the photo session, Sarah and I stepped away from the group, seeking a moment alone. The soft music filled the space, and the murmur of the guests blended with the clinking of plates. I led her to a quieter corner, away from the hustle, and the cool night breeze wrapped around us. "You know, I never thought I would make it this far," I began, looking up at the starry sky. "After Emily passed, everything felt so empty. But now, with you by my side, I feel like I'm starting to live again." Sarah looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "I feel that way too, Michael. You brought me back to life. It's not easy, but together I think we can face anything." It was then that an impulse took over me. I needed to be honest about how I felt. "Sarah, I hesitated, feeling the vulnerability of the moment. I want you to know that my heart is opening up to you. I never imagined I could feel this way again, but you make me feel alive." She was silent for a moment, and the world seemed to pause. Then, with a soft smile, she replied, "I feel the same, Michael. From the moment we met, something in me awakened. It's like I'm finding a piece of myself that was lost." Those words were like balm to my soul. Courage took over me, and I leaned in closer, our faces almost touching. "Can I kiss you?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Yes, please," she whispered, and in that instant, everything around us disappeared. Our lips met softly, and it felt as if a wave of warmth enveloped us. The kiss was sweet and tender, a promise of something new and wonderful. I felt light, as if all the pain and sadness I had carried were dissipated in that moment. It was a kiss of rebirth, of hope, and of love that, against all odds, was beginning to bloom again. When we pulled away, still tangled in our feelings, a loud commotion interrupted our moment. A group of guests was agitated near the entrance, and I recognized the figure causing all the fuss. It was David, my old business rival, wearing a disdainful expression and a provocative smile. His gaze fixed on me, and for a moment I felt my heart sink. "Look who decided to show up," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "The great Michael Harris, now a philanthropist. How lovely!" The tension in the air was palpable, and I couldn't believe he was here at my party, trying to ruin what should be a moment of joy. Sarah looked at me, a mix of concern and curiosity in her gaze. "What is he doing here?" she whispered. "I don't know, but it seems he didn't come to congratulate," I replied, trying to keep calm. What he said next could be devastating, and I didn't want Sarah or anyone else to be affected by his provocations. David, sensing the attention he was drawing, continued, "I just wanted to see how you were coping with your newfound fortune. It's funny how some people manage to reinvent themselves, isn't it? Especially when they have something to hide." Those words struck like a blow. I could feel my blood boiling, and indignation rose within me. He was implying that I had something to do with Emily's accident, and that wasn't just an offense. It was a cruelty beyond limits. Without thinking, I turned to him. "You have no idea what you're talking about, David. This isn't just business for me. It's my wife's legacy, so don't come here trying to destabilize me." He let out a sarcastic laugh. "Oh, Michael, you're always so dramatic. But don't worry, I'll make sure everyone knows about your past. After all, everyone loves a scandal." Those words echoed in the room, and I saw worried faces turning towards me. What he was trying to do was clear: ruin the reputation I had built, and that was something I couldn't allow. "You don't know me, David," I replied, my voice firm. "And more importantly, you don't know the love I had and still have for Emily. The foundation is her legacy, and I'm determined to honor her, no matter what you say." Sarah stepped closer to me, holding my hand tightly. She was by my side, and that support gave me strength. I looked at her, and in her eyes, I saw that I wasn't alone in this battle. "Michael, let's ignore him," she said, her voice low but filled with determination. "What matters is what we're building here and now." David, realizing the unity we were forming, seemed frustrated. "This story isn't over, Michael. You may have her support, but the truth always comes to light." And with that, he turned and left the hall, leaving a trail of murmurs and confused looks among the guests. I took a deep breath, trying to process what had just happened. The relief of having him gone mixed with the adrenaline of the situation. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, her concerned gaze fixed on me. "I am," I replied, but I knew that David's shadow still loomed over me. "Let's continue the party. I don't want him to ruin this day." She smiled, and the sparkle in her eyes made me feel that, despite everything, there was a bright future ahead of us. It was time to leave the past behind and focus on what truly mattered. The foundation, Emily's memory, and above all, the new love that was beginning to blossom between us. The lights of the foundation's opening party still flickered in my mind, but the joy was quickly overshadowed by the unexpected presence of Jason, my old rival. He was like a shadow, seemingly following my every step, always ready to throw a stone in my path. As I spoke with Sarah, His voice sliced through our conversation like a knife. "Look who's here," Jason exclaimed, a sarcastic smile on his face. The great Michael Harris, now transformed into a philanthropist. How lovely. But you know, Michael, life isn't just about what you show the world. I felt my heart race, not from the excitement of the party, but from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What do you want, Jason?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure and not let my anger show. "I just came to congratulate you on the foundation, but I can't help but wonder. Do you really think Emily would be proud of you?" He paused, staring intently into my eyes. "Did you know that the accident that took her wasn't just an accident? Someone was behind it." His words echoed in the room like a disturbing refrain. I recalled the pain I felt when I learned Emily was no longer by my side, and the idea that there might be more behind her death was almost unbearable. "What are you insinuating?" I said, my voice shaking with rage and confusion. "I'm just saying there are secrets you haven't uncovered yet. And if I were you, I'd be careful about whom you trust, especially now that you're so vulnerable." Jason stepped back, as if he was enjoying my discomfort. Sarah, who had been watching the conversation with concern, squeezed my hand. "Michael, don't listen to what he says. He's just trying to provoke you." "Provoke? No. I'm just sharing the truth. And the truth is that sometimes, love can be someone's greatest weakness," Jason said, a disdainful smile on his face. In that moment, a wave of determination washed over me. I wouldn't let Jason ruin me again. He had hurt me in the past, but now I had someone by my side who supported me. "You don't know what you're talking about, Jason. I won't let you affect me. Emily deserves more respect than that." "Respect? She's not here to hear your good intentions, Michael. And if you had a little more sense, you'd know the truth will come out," he replied, but his voice now carried a tinge of desperation. Jason walked away, but the seed of doubt had been planted. As the party continued around me, I turned to Sarah, who was looking at me with concern. "Do you believe he could be right? That someone manipulated Emily's accident?" "I don't know, Michael, but we need to investigate. We can't let this just be his words. We need answers," she said, the determination in her voice inspiring me. In the days that followed, I plunged into a frantic investigation. Sarah stood by me every step of the way. Together, we reviewed documents, spoke with people who knew Emily, and even tried to recreate the timeline of the accident. Every clue we found seemed to lead us deeper into a labyrinth of lies and secrets. "Look at this," Sarah exclaimed one day, pointing to an old email she had found in Emily's files. She was communicating with someone who seemed worried about her safety, mentioning a project she was working on. This could be related to what Jason said. My heart raced. Do you think there could be a connection? Someone who wanted her silenced? "It's a possibility. We need to find out who that person was and what exactly was going on," Sarah replied, her gaze firm and resolute. As we dug deeper, we discovered that the project Emily was working on involved a new security technology for companies. It was innovative and might have caused envy in many. What should have been a step into the future turned into a deadly trap. Finally, we found a name that kept appearing. Daniel, a co-worker of Emily's who had always been competitive with her. He had a lot to gain if she failed. "What do you think, Michael?" Sarah asked, her voice now filled with tension. "We need to find him and confront him. He might have information that helps us understand what really happened," I said, already feeling the adrenaline surge again. When we finally tracked down Daniel, he seemed nervous and evasive. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his gaze avoiding mine. "Emily was just a colleague. There was nothing beyond professional." "She was scared, Daniel. Scared of something happening at work. You know something you're hiding, don't you?" I said, feeling the anger and pain rising again. "I don't know. I don't know," he shouted, his face pale. She was being pressured, but it had nothing to do with me. I didn't want any of this to happen. With each word, the truth began to unravel. "So you confirm there was pressure on her?" Do you know who was behind it? I exclaimed, the tension mounting. Our confrontation was intense, but deep down, I knew Daniel wasn't the real culprit. He was just as scared as I was. With Sarah's help, we managed to gather enough evidence to present to the police. Finally, the truth came to light. Jason was arrested, and he hadn't just manipulated Emily's accident. He had also tried to cover up his actions. The freedom I had long sought was finally within reach, but the weight of the pain from losing Emily still lingered. You did it, Michael. You made it, Sarah said, her voice soft. Now you can move on. Yes, but I don't want to forget Emily. She will always be a part of me, I replied, looking into her eyes, realizing how much I had grown alongside her. And she would be happy that you found the courage to move forward, Michael. The love you shared will never be erased, Sarah agreed, the sincerity in her gaze bringing me comfort. With a tight embrace, I realized I was finally ready to build something new. What we had experienced together was a true treasure, not just in terms of material wealth, but in love and redemption. The future lay before us, and together we were ready to face it. Sure. Please provide the text you would like me to translate. Course. Please provide the text you would like to have translated, and I'll be happy to assist you with that. Sure. Please provide the text you would like me to translate, and I'll be happy to assist you.